Hey, how you doing? I'm Greg Lumley. I'm a wedding photographer based in Cape Town. And recently, because I get a lot of questions from brides, we decided to put an FAQ up. My wife is also a photographer, so she knows also a lot about the industry. She's a newborn photographer. She's amazing. Go and check her work out. And through this Facebook connection, we actually got loads of emails asking us questions, which I've answered many times, but I think a lot of brides have these same questions. So what we decided to do was get these questions, put them into a video and answer them. Okay, so the first question I get is, my husband and I really don't like posing for photographs. Is this going to be a problem? I get this question all the time. You know, it's actually not easy to be a model, and I find this especially with the guys. The guys don't like being in front of the camera. It just seems to be a guy thing, whereas girls are a little bit more comfortable. If you think about it, this is the one time through the day that you are going to be together, with the exception of me, alone, if that makes any sense. So it's something to treasure. One of the things that I really like to do is I like to do what I call setups. So I'll get the two of you to actually stand in a certain position. I'll set up how I want the scene to sort of look, and then I get you guys to react to each other. And you've just got married, so of course you're going to be amazing together. And because you're working with each other and you're not worrying about me, the photographs just naturally come. Not every photographer works like this, and my advice to you is be very, very sure with who you choose. Make sure that when you meet them, Skype meet them, just make sure you're comfortable about them. If you've got a great sense of humor, make sure they've got a great sense of humor, and ask them this question: how do they work? I've seen rigid photographs all the time where you can see these poses that are almost robot-esque, for want of a way of saying it, and they're actually, you can see the couples just don't feel right. So it's very important that whatever you feel right with, you're able to convey to your photographer. Get a bridesmaid to come with, even get a couple of groomsmen to come with, and bring a couple of drinks and canapes, because while we're busy doing this, the couple shoot, they can also join in. We can do some pretty cool, relaxed friend photographs, and those really work well. And the real thing or crux of the matter is that when you work in a sort of relaxed style, which is something that I am fortunate to be able to do very well, I will very often have grooms, not so much brides, but grooms coming to me and saying, oh my word, I thought that was just going to be horrible. And I've actually had great fun doing it. And the other comment that I get all the time is people go, wow, is that an hour gone already? So if you're relaxed, it'll work well. Okay, this is one that I've heard only a few times. I'm busy choosing a wedding dress, and I was wondering what it is that you think works well from a photographer's point of view with regards to that. Well, obviously everybody has got their own individual taste, and most people will have an idea of what they want to get married in, and no photographer can, I don't think, ever dictate that. I can tell you what works well for me. Personally, I think that the dress should fit as well as it possibly can. When a dress fits well, it always looks great, regardless of the figure. Long trains, beautiful fitting dress, the more flow, the better. If there's detail, it always helps. But I think flow and good fit are probably my number one. Something that I absolutely love personally is I love working with veils. But be warned, only a few minutes into the ceremony you are going to want to take it off, because what happens is it hooks into the back of the hair over here, and then very often people will put their arm around you, and as they do, it actually jerks back. So something to keep in mind is that it's going to be uncomfortable, but if you can wear one, I promise you, photographs are just gorgeous. Longer veils, even better. Beautiful edging, even better. It just looks amazing. It looks elegant. If my bride wants to get rid of the veil, it happens all the time, I'll just advise her to take it out, and then we can even cheat it in for a few shots when we're doing the couple photos. Hi Greg, I'm thinking of doing a winter wedding. What are your thoughts on that? I love winter weddings. We can get amazing pictures. They are the most dramatic pictures you can possibly get. And when everything's wet, the landscape just looks amazing. Things to take into account. I don't think that if you do a big winter wedding it works very well, because not very many venues are going to be able to keep you all contained if it's a larger wedding. So I would say generally if you're doing a winter wedding, it would be more advisable to do a smaller wedding. And obviously make sure your guests are warm. Another thing to actually consider is that if you're doing a winter wedding, and I've done many winter weddings, and in fact been rained out very few times. In fact, one of my weddings that got rained out was in January, which is summer here in Cape Town. So it was quite unusual. If you are going to get rained out. The venue should be the kind that would be able to accommodate working indoors. So be sure to check with your photographer. They will be able to tell you whether or not it will work indoors. So you don't want to be stuck with rain outside. You cannot go outside, but you're sitting essentially in a venue that's got white walls and you can't do anything with it. So in terms of decor, when it comes to just themes, the more lighting that you can bring in just looks amazing. If you can light the entire reception and you've got the budget for it, do it. It looks amazing. Lots of fairy lights, lots of candles. Obviously with candles, watch out. I've literally seen somebody nearly catch on fire because the candles were placed too close to their hair. So that's something to take into account. But what all of that lighting does is it creates mood. Another thing that I've seen in decor is I've seen remarkably low-cost weddings using the tiniest little details, whether it be ribbons or little clothes pegs holding name tags, simple little things that are not essentially very expensive, but just work well. And the biggest thing is make sure that all the colors match each other and they don't bounce from each other. Keep it simple. Pay attention to details. Something else to be very aware of is when you put centerpieces in the table, don't put stuff that's too high. And here's a good example of it. If I'm sitting in front of a table with new guests, it gets a little bit tricky talking to people like this the whole time. And I've seen it a lot of the time. It doesn't work too well and it's kind of annoying. Another thing to take into account is I've seen a big thing is that wedding clients will often put flowers along the main table, and they often will put lilies are a big favorite. Orchids. And the orchids look amazing, but the flowers will come over here and they'll sit literally right there. So what I like to do is when I'm busy shooting through the reception is I'm continually watching for little moments if I can. And obstructions that sit in front of my camera like this, or those lilies, will actually avoid me getting them. In fact, when I see it, I'll often take the lilies and put them on the floor. Another thing to consider is that make sure your photographer is seated with you guys. If anything impromptu happens, you don't want to be fetching him from a hall somewhere behind the scenes. Keep your photographer part of your wedding, and the same goes for your videographer. Feed them the same as what you get fed, and what happens then is it makes sure that the photographer is never busy trying to gobble down his food while the first dance is happening. Please look after your service providers. I see this coming up time and time again, where service providers are quite literally treated like the help and not fed. And you know, we run around a lot during the day, and we will do amazing things for you. Be careful where you place the wedding cake. Keep the photographs in mind. Don't put the wedding cake in front of a fire extinguisher. I mean, unless you want a fire extinguisher in your photograph behind the cake. Don't put it in front of a door where people are moving in and out of. I've seen cakes placed in front of exit signs. Another one, which for me is a bit of a nightmare, is placing the cake in front of a mirror. When you're busy taking that shot, there's all this reflection coming back. What does work quite well, I've found with the cake, is that when you walk into your reception for the first time, I've seen people put the cake in the middle of the dance floor. What that does is that it includes everybody, because you'll walk into the reception as Mr. and Mrs. Everybody's so excited to see you. We'll just have done the couple shoot prior to that. You walk straight up to the cake and you cut it then. This is great because it keeps everybody involved. I've done loads of weddings, and people get overzealous about flowers, and they've got a massive flower arrangement, and normally it's right over here and it's right over here, and the couple are sitting over here and there's a wall over there. Now, where am I able to get a photograph of the couple? So it's really important that if there is decor inside the ceremony, it must be placed out of the photographer and videographer's way. I, as a photographer, would prefer not to stand in the aisle looking pretty much from the angle you're seeing me right now, because where you're seeing me from right now, we've got a whole lot of people all sitting over here, and they are as well. And of course, they don't want to see the back of my head if they don't have to. So I'll prefer to always stand over here looking over the shoulders and as much out of the way as possible. But put two massive sets of flowers over here, and I'm literally having to almost push in and become part of the ceremony, which for me, and I think for everybody, is just not something that we really want. So when you place any form of decor in the ceremony itself, just be mindful of this. Something else that you might want to watch out for is that if you decide to do a little gazebo outside, watch out for hanging things from the gazebo. I've seen little flowers and little shells, and it works well, it looks amazing, but if you're going to do it, make sure that they're just below eye line. So if I've got shells over here and I'm sitting over there as the photographer, then of course that shell sits over here in front of my eyes. So make sure they're either above or below the eye line. This is from Justine, and she wants to know what she should be looking for when she's choosing a wedding venue. Okay, well, this is obviously something that's very personal. Do you want vineyards? Do you want a sort of urban background, etc.? So this is very much up to you. We're going to be doing a blog post shortly of some of my favorite venues. A few tips to consider. Try and keep it compact. Getting married at the house, going off to the church, and then coming back to a reception is always going to give you a lot less time with your guests, and also make it a lot trickier. There's so many venues out there, specifically here in Cape Town, that have everything, ranging from even right down to accommodation, so you can even get ready there. That just keeps it nice and compact. Something else to consider is obviously you have to like the venue and it has to match everything that you want. This is a question that we got quite a few, asked quite a few times. I'm getting married on Saturday. Do you have any last minute tips? Yes, I've got loads. Get your bridesmaids to carry a few things and arrange this beforehand. You want tissues, headache pills, rescue remedy, needle and thread. I've actually seen buttons and hemming and zip come undone during a wedding and there's a last minute panic. Another thing that works well, crochet hook. If your dress has buttons up the back, then the crochet hook works brilliantly to actually just get the loop over the button. So when you're getting dressed, make sure you've got some music. Somebody must have one of those little docks. Get one, bring it. Videographer might not like me so much for that, but in that case, all that you do is you actually just put it down while the videographer's there. I walk into so many getting ready situations, and I walk in and it feels like a morgue. It's your wedding day. Make it awesome. Have a ball. And music is the best way to do that. Of course, you could go with alcohol, but you don't want to do that too soon. Too soon. Don't do that. Please be ready at least 45 minutes before you are going to leave for the ceremony. I cannot tell you how many weddings I go to that we run late, and at the very last minute I'm trying to snatch pictures as we are literally walking out the door. Your makeup will be amazing, your hair will be pristine, your dress will be amazing, everything will be perfect. This is such a good time to get some amazing bridal portraits, to get great shots with your bridesmaids, and if your parents are there, to get a couple of shots with them as well. Utilize the pictures that we as photographers give you. In running late, you are simply losing the opportunity to have yet more great photographs for your day. If you are arriving at the ceremony in a car, if you remember, try and wind down the window. It'll give us a great opportunity to get a shot of you through that window without massive reflections. Something that I actually cannot stress enough is slow it down. I find people will arrive. I've done helicopter weddings. I have done carriage weddings. I've done even a boat wedding. Slow it down. When you're about to get out of the car, just slow it down. Let your dad help you out. And keep an eye out for the photographer if you can. Walking down the aisle, let your bridesmaids walk up the aisle first. Make sure that they're evenly spaced so that the videographer and photographer can actually get shots of them as they do and that they're not masking each other. Don't walk up the aisle until they are settled right at the front of the aisle. That way, when you start walking, we'll be able to get great shots of you and your father or whoever is actually giving you away. Take your time. No rush here. Take your time. The more time you give us in a slow walk up, the more we're able to get lots of photos. Okay, so for the first kiss, don't turn it into a big, deep smooch. It never really looks great on camera. It looks like you're kind of trying to eat each other, which is not cool. What you want to do is just do a soft, slow kiss and take your time. At the end, give each other a hug. And in fact, if you want to, do a couple of kisses. The more opportunity me and the videographer have to actually get great shots, the better. So when it comes to formal photographs, decide beforehand with your photographer where you're likely to do those. And in the weeks leading up to the wedding, make sure that everybody in your family knows where they're going to be. I've had father of a groom go ahead to the venue when we were doing pictures at the church, and as you can imagine, that just throws the timeline horribly out. So just keep everybody informed. For the couple shoot, be sure to allocate enough time. Most photographers will want at least 60 minutes. I know I certainly do. As I said earlier, that'll go very quickly. Some things that work really well. Bring a pair of slops. Just something that you can take off your high heels. You can wear those Louboutins later on. They very seldom are visible underneath the dress, and we'll be doing a bit of walking around the venue. So just before you're about to walk into reception, give me time to get ahead of you to actually get set up and be waiting for you. This is also really a great time for you to go and possibly freshen up, and also possibly, well, in fact, I've seen it done at a few weddings where the couple have spent just 5 minutes alone, and it'll be the first time they have been alone, so use that. When walking into the reception, if you are forced to walk between tables as in single file, let him walk ahead of you. If it's the other way around, what will often happen is he'll end up stepping on your dress, and it kind of makes it awkward as you come in. So for any event that happens through the wedding, whether it's handing flowers over to mother of the bride, or of course first dance, garter, bouquet, make sure we are warned ahead of time. Emphasize this with your MC. Give us at least 5 minutes warning so that we don't miss these moments. So on the first dance, dance the dance as a couple the whole way through. What I sometimes see is people start the dancing and then everybody else joins them. And of course this stops me being able to get some more isolated photographs of the two of you. Here's a bit of personal advice. Take some time somewhere in the evening just to go and walk outside. Walk out a little bit away from the venue, just the two of you. Don't tell anybody where you're going, and just take it all in. You know, you'll hear from everybody how fast the time goes. And Tiff and myself got married not too long ago, 4 years now actually. It has been the most amazing 4 years. Of course. Love you, my darling. Sorry.
I can't believe that.
This is something that Tiffany and myself did, and you just spend a few moments together, because through the whole day you really will have very little opportunity to simply just be with each other. There'll be too many distractions and too much going on. Enjoy the day and look back on it, and that's a memory that will sit in your head forever. One thing you can be sure of is that there will be little hiccups throughout the day. Nothing runs perfectly. I've done a few hundred weddings, and I find that there's always something that's not quite right, whether it's a small piece of decor or a dress that may have come loose, or simple little things. Do you know what? I've seen this. I'm the outsider. Nobody notices. Have the time of your life. I'm Greg Lumley, and thank you for watching this video.